Welcome back to Reality Check. We are excited. This week we're going to be having another wonderful conversation on workplace dating or workplace romance or workplace affairs, whichever term you choose to use. That's going to be the focus of our conversation today. But before we get into it, my name is Rachel Mwine, your host, and I'm joined by Evas Atwine, Doctor Evas Atwine, who is many things. You are a marriage therapist, a parenting coach. She's a mental health expert and advocate. She's also the founder for International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. And she's here with me usually every week to have another exciting conversation on workplace romance this time around. Now, there was a survey by the Society for Human Resource Management that revealed that 82% of those who have workplace romances or affairs never report them to their employer, because I think most employers require that you report if you're involved with a colleague or maybe a subordinate with their manager, that sort of thing. So welcome to the show. And Dr. Evas, I want us to start by asking, why do you think there's a lot of secrecy around these kinds of relationships?
Okay, so thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Thank you.
And to talk about these relationships. So let me start here. First of all, we spend the biggest chunk of our daytime in the workplace.
Yes, yes.
There is a lot of interaction. And relationships by their nature, people are bound to attach.
Yeah.
And so develop that kind of connection and attachment, and so these relationships happen. I'm very sure in this conversation we're going to talk about boundaries, but you asked me why are they hiding them?
Yeah.
Okay, so number one, there are workplaces that don't promote those relationships.
Yeah.
So HR policy is very clear that these are the boundaries. In fact, I know a number of organizations where, because they are trying to address the issue of
Harassment?
Yes, sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment.
So in an attempt to avert sexual harassment, most workplaces have come up with this policy that those relationships are not promoted.
Allowed, yes.
Because, sexual harassment, there's a
very gray area.
Very gray area. Yeah. And so that's number one. Number two, of course, conflict of interest. Just imagine you're supervising your wife. And so there is a lot of conflict of interest, plus migration of issues from private life into the workplace. Yes. Of course, that's they are also trying to avert that. And some of them actually go ahead to require that if, for instance, you get into this intimate relationship and it's supposed to end, it could be healthy, it ends into marriage, two young people get attracted to each other and they have plans to get married, some places require that that one of you resigns. I've had to deal with, as you are aware, we support several workplaces, and this is one of the areas we address. However,
you can go there.
Yes. So as a psychologist, again, specialized also in workplace wellness.
Yes.
Most of the relationships that happen, and I don't know, I haven't read that report, I would be eager to look at it, but I would be interested to see how many of the relationships are actually healthy, they're supposed to. So I'm a single boy, a single girl, and we are interested in this. What happens is that I hate to talk without evidence, but my suspicion is that most of these relationships are actually not the healthy way. People are just running on the basis of chemistry.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if that's happening, and if it is not a matter of policy or something, then these are two married people. They have no plans. They are just riding on chemistry and these are relationships we call just for just.
Just for just, yes.
And so they are bound to hide them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've already talked about policy, but also the nature of relation. What is it about?
Yeah.
So is it something you wouldn't want anyone to know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of those are two reasons, major reasons why people hide them.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they are doing them because maybe they don't want their spouses to know.
Of course. I mean, like, who does that and wants their spouses to know unless they are really on another planet? But, I mean, to protect their integrity and all that and reputation and
it's an oxymoron because you're doing something that endangers your integrity, but you're trying to protect.
But that's human nature. So sometimes we think if we do it in hiding, it's going to be a little better. But as it were, it always ends in tears. So so reputational carnage. We try to guard against reputational carnage. So that's why people hide it. And can I tell you what? To simplify it. Most of the time we know we are doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
So every time we're just thinking about little children, I'm a mom, so whenever we are teaching children to learn to do the right thing, to promote integrity, we say, anytime, this is a little check, anytime you're doing something and you feel you don't want people to know, don't do it.
Yes.
You see. So that's one of the reasons that people hide. They know they are doing the wrong thing and they are guarding against reputational carnage.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And again, you say we're not speaking with, we don't have the statistics, but in our corporate world today, we hear a lot about. And you're right. I mean, the nature of the relationships is very rarely on a healthy foundation. It's not, I'm a single boy, you're a single girl, I've met you, we like each other. Maybe this is actually leading to marriage. Rarely is it that.
Yeah.
It's more often than not sexual in nature.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear about the sexual network within corporate, corporate spaces. We hear about work husbands and work wives.
Yeah, that's right.
You probably have your wife at home or your husband at home, but when you get into the workplace, because like you said, we spend a lot of time with these individuals, this person now becomes your spouse.
Yeah.
And it may not even be secret per se. People might know, but it's not something that we say out in the open.
Sure.
And it's quite unfortunate, and I think it's bound to cause heartache. And I would like for you to speak to what you think the harmful implications of these relationships are, both to the individuals and to the organization.
So they're very, very dangerous. So they have a sexual harassment angle, and we all know the dangers of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
But let's assume two consenting adults have gone into this. Now, can I just first talk about how it happens?
Yes.
So this is how it happens. The number one reason why most people get into this is lack of emotional boundaries. So I come in and you're my colleague. So I go like, hi Peter. I mean, there's some honestly like innocent connection, and I'm on record. I've been telling workplace teams to please ensure they have healthy relationships.
Got it.
And be deliberate about nurturing them. And this, I mean, come in, connect with people in a healthy way, smile, greet them, be interested. You know, like I say, Rachel, how's your son doing? And that's it. But most of the time, we take those conversations to what we call an emotional level.
Yes.
So we start disclosing information, especially about our private relationships, about our marriages. So if you're having a challenge now, I've connected with Peter. There's no Peter in my life, please not. So I've connected with Peter, and we have a health, and he's my friend, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. The issue is at what level.
Yes.
right? Yes. Because there are levels at which we communicate, and I'm sure we'll get into that conversation. Now, when we are connecting with a colleague, there are certain conversations we are not supposed to get into. And so boundaries govern every relationship. So when we get in, we go like, oh, hi, Peter. Oh, Evas, you don't look well today. Oh, I fought with my husband. Tell me what happened. You cry a little bit.
Yes, he gives you a hug.
He gives you a hug.
He's being thoughtful.
Caring. So, do you see? So you've opened up.
Yes.
And so the moment you get into those two levels, you know, we have 4 levels. We have the cliche, we have the logistical, and even at emotional, then we have emotional, and then we have the transparent.
Good.
But you see, if you start connecting at deep emotional, there's some, you know, emotional, oh, I'm not feeling well, how are you? No. But when you start those deep emotional conversation, what happens is that you're going to connect. Connect, and then you're discussing deep personal relational issues. And now this person comforts you. And before you know, now you're relying on this person emotionally. Plus, depending on what intentions they develop or interests they develop, they've already known the gaps in your private relationship, in your marriage.
So they can explore.
Also, they can actually exploit that. So they go like, oh, you know, do you know me? What comforts me? I really, my husband can't give me flowers.
Yes. So the person gives you flowers.
So he goes like, flowers? I mean, really, flowers? Damn flowers?
Just
I'm
flowers?
going to get them.
Yes.
And so that's how we expose ourselves. So we become so vulnerable. Good. So now this stage where we become so vulnerable. We go bare. That's where it begins. What was your question? So you asked me,
how are they
how
harmful?
Is it dangerous? Now, what happens is that before you know, you've gone bare, you are exposing your partner, you're very vulnerable, right? Someone knows you so well, and they can easily abuse you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But not to stop there, we know what happens. And so most marriages, people are struggling. And so you've opened yourself up, whether man or woman, you're going to go back home because you've opened yourself up to emotional connection. Then this person feels they are depending on you, you're depending on each other. And so what happens? So there are certain conversations you're having that are inappropriate.
That's true.
And so even when you go home, the person on the other side feels it's you who can understand him. And most of the time, the things we are doing with our workplace husbands and wives, we can't even do them with our partners.
That's true.
Back home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your partner needs a hug. Just a hug.
Yeah.
Like a damn hug.
Just give him a hug.
You can't give them a hug. But you go to hug a colleague.
A colleague at work.
So that's why most of the time we are actually faking it. So we go, and in the workplace they see you, because there they don't know much about you. Much of the private, you see, what we take to the workplace is manufactured in our private space.
Got it.
So at home you're a totally different person. But when you go to the workplace, you meet this person, they are warm and they listen to you. And what I always ask people, do you think they are doing that to their partner? Most likely
not. Yes. Most likely not.
You see, they are such a wonderful wife, a nice person. No, not wife.
Not wife,
But such a nice person, talks well. That's why I was telling you that the things we do in the workplace, rather in our marriages, if we did them in the workplace, we would get fired.
Yes.
Fully fired, and all of us would be probably unemployed. You
we are
understand?
very, very incompetent at home.
We are so incompetent at home. So when your spouse is struggling with you, you're not expressing love, you're just there. When you go there, you start acting. So you act nice, and because there it's very easy to fake it, because it's just a couple of minutes or hours, and then we go back. So it's very damaging. Most marriages have failed because of that. So I was talking about inappropriate conversations, then that's where we are having phones. Trouble with our phones. And you find, turns out, that most of the people who are destroying marriages, actually relationships are in the workplace. And one of the other reasons why that is happening is that people don't have time for other connections. So we leave home, we go to the workplace, we work, maybe some people go to bars or wherever, but most relationships that are killing marriages are hacked in the workplace. In the workplace. It's just a colleague, and of course you hear it's just.
We just work together.
We just work together. So, and you hear some of these conversations that very unfortunate. So you hear someone say, "So you don't want me to work, so I'm going to stay home."
As in 0 to 100 in such a short time. You're like, where did we even get there? I'm talking about our relationship. You don't want me to work.
And so you want me, can't I ever interact with the opposite sex?
People.
Now, can I just make an important point here? Be careful. Anyone listening, anytime you start saying just, anything you call just.
Yes.
But it's just a flirtation. But it's just. Now, those messages inappropriate, because you're telling someone you are with, I miss you and all that, and you call that just, and you think your partner is going to understand it. Both men and women, by the way. Both men and women. And in my practice, this is happening everywhere. Everywhere. You see? And then, I mean, I meet this all the time. Someone says, and you know what is happening, these relationships, people have taken them to another level, technological advancement. So people are going lunchtime, even early in the morning, before they go to work, they are in guest houses and all this happening. And when your partner sees something, then you say,
you don't want me to work
with someone. You don't want me to work.
It's just a colleague.
Do you want to find me in the office? I remember a guy who was telling the wife and manipulating her and saying, I think I'm going to ask my CEO to just give you some little place in the office so that you can watch me as I work. Now, you
like
see that
guilt talking.
Yes, so it's actually manipulation. It is you're gaslighting them and not owning up. But Rachel, this is damaging. Extremely damaging. And I mean, if anyone is struggling with this, it's very important to have conversation. I know people who have been led into such relationships and they are stuck. They are stuck. So you started it, you thought it was a little, just a little high, and it has gone, and you realize it's very damaging to your relationship.
And I think some of them probably start out as and they are of a sexual nature. It's just about the sex. It's just about the lust and the, we are just having a good time. Do you hear just? We're just having a good time. And then maybe one of the individuals would like to take the relationship to the next level, but these individuals are married. And now that presents a bigger problem. It's like, oh, but we were just having a good time. Now you want a full-blown relationship. The person is making demands. You must leave your partner. And then we have a big problem on our hands.
But you see, wait a minute, Rachel. Do you know that even that having a nice time is emotional?
Yes.
And faithfulness.
Yes, it is.
It's emotion and faithfulness because you are investing your emotions somewhere else. And let's be honest, anything you can, relationships are governed by expectations and boundaries.
Correct.
So if you're doing something for someone that is not expected, And I'm saying this, I'm aware that most of us have no idea about boundaries.
Yeah.
We know, but we don't know when it comes to observing them.
Yes.
We are happy to break the rules, a whole other story.
Yeah.
But we know, there are certain words I will not say to a man who is not my husband. Do you understand? You see, there's a certain conversation I'm not supposed to get into because I'm married and I'm a mom.
There's a certain time you're not supposed to be talking to the person of the opposite sex.
Exactly.
A colleague of the opposite sex.
You understand? You know? And so, let's be honest, it requires discipline. And you know, discipline is very discomforting.
This is true.
Yeah, and it feels like it can't be attained. But you see, discipline is what governs healthy relationships. Yeah. Those boundaries require serious discipline. Yeah. And so if you are just allowing everyone in your private space, and then you come out and blame your partner, and you say, I think you've lost it.
It's not fair.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
We are just.
We are just. We're just, and I mean, I know we are not in the human resource space, but I think we have seen how harmful these relationships can be to the organization. To the organization, let me tell you that the danger to the organization is that that's not a love space. Again, we are talking about expectations. Yeah. And why most organizations just really put those strict policies in place is so people don't get distracted. Now, human nature, or by our nature, we are supposed to be governed. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we cannot just do things on our own. And so that's why people have to have those regulations in place. Some of them written rules, others unwritten. Yeah. Because it affects productivity.
Yes.
There is a conflict.
Yeah.
There's a mental conflict. There's a contradiction. And if someone is pushed into some mental contradiction, they cannot perform okay.
Yeah.
If there are certain conflicts, like you're supervising someone you're in love with, what happens when you have to have tough conversations? What happens when you have to do these reviews?
Appraisals, yes.
What happens when you have to give them regular feedback, uncomfortable feedback? What happens? And so you find that there's preferential treatment, there's all this, there's chaos. So it is very damaging. It affects productivity in the workplace. Yeah. It does. Plus, when people have, individuals have gotten into these relations and they have chaos in their families, right? Because you know that it's all peace at home, peace at work, peace of mind, and then productivity.
Correct.
But now they've gotten into these relationships, as it were, it always spills. They start it in secrecy, but it comes out. Yeah. It always, almost always, comes out. Yeah. And so now this person is dealing with confusion in their private marriages, right? In their private lives, in their marriage. Yeah. Now that confusion always again finds its way in the workplace, because now this person is confused. I do remember years back, and this is a true story of a guy who had heard of that story, had a relationship with a lady, with a colleague in the workplace. This lady, the husband, was a supervisor to this guy. You understand?
Wow, yes.
And they had a relationship for like over 1 year, and they kept going. Now, it always comes out.
Oh, sure.
So when the wife got to know, it was chaotic, and you want to imagine what happened. Yeah. But the thing is, the lady now, in panic and all the pain, she's calling the husband to this lady. She's the one who breaks news to the lady, to the guy, and the guy is looking at this junior staff. Do you see the case? The mess.
That's it.
Do you want to tell me how those four
parties,
those four people are working in their respective task lines? So it is damaging, absolutely damaging. And That's why we encourage, please, as much as possible. Focus but also define.
And before we get to the boundaries, I think, you know, at a certain level now you've involved the organization or this brand into your personal affairs. Sometimes now they are forced to even make statements, disassociating themselves from you because they also want to maintain the integrity of their brand.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
That happens a lot. I mean, we all know.
Yeah.
Several organizations have come out. We've seen some people in the papers, and it has reputational damage or carnage to the individual, but also it's associated to the organization.
Yes.
And people, I mean, I saw one particular one where they were saying this person has been killed and they were not killed, and they are talking, and everyone was saying, that
organization, yeah, no, and I honestly believe, and I think we want to talk a bit about boundaries and how we can, I guess, use the workplace for what it is meant to. But before we get there, workplace relationships are not entirely bad. We talked about, you know, in the beginning, there being, you know, I'm a single guy, I'm a single woman. So we talked about in the beginning where, you know, there's actually a single guy or a single girl who have good intentions, and maybe they came to work, they're focused on their goals, but then their eye has seen someone, and, you know, they've been raised well and they're looking to get married. How can they then maintain the integrity of their relationship, but also focus on the work that has brought them to this particular workplace?
Yeah, so it goes back to boundaries.
Yeah.
And it also goes back to discipline. Now, unfortunately, now I understand why, for instance, most companies don't want to encourage that, because there is a natural spillover that is going to happen.
For sure.
So if the relationship at home, and it will always happen, like you had a conflict, it's unresolved, and you get to the workplace, you have to work together. You only have one brain.
True.
To process these things.
Yes.
And for some people, it's very hard to compartmentalize. And that's why we encourage, in that place, in that situation, encouraging people to be deliberate, intentional about resolving issues, because clearly these are going to pour in your workplace. They are going to pour in your workplace. And secondly, also to know when to, when it is work and when it is personal.
Yeah. So
can I say that it's going to be harder for that person, but once they are prepared, they are aware of the kind of dynamics they're going to be dealing with, they can manage it. It happens. I mean, people work together. People in business, couples work spouses work together.
Yes.
And so it's not, we can't say it's impossible, but it requires a higher level of awareness, a higher level of intentionality, a higher level of deliberate effort to separate issues and to know that this is work, and if I'm talking work, if I'm presenting and my husband is the head of department, I don't have to say, oh, sweetheart, you know, I just have to know, Mr. Twine, this is what we are doing and we need your guidance. But it requires a lot of mental compartmentalization, a lot of it, and quite intentional, and a bit of discipline that you have to train yourselves onto. It's achievable.
It is. It is. And I think same applies to if you are, you know, both single and you're working towards, you know, getting married, or you actually are in a relationship but are working in an organization together. Like we've said, organizations usually have policies surrounding these kinds of relationships, and so I think it would serve you to either report, you know, your relationship, or adhere to. I know I worked for a company where they said if you found yourselves in a relationship and you were in the same department, one of you had to transfer to another department.
That's what happens. So one of you has to transfer. Again, they are avoiding some of the issues we just been talking about. But then also the issue of reporting. But you only report, you remember where we started, if it is good intentions, if it is good foundation, if it is, I mean, you want to genuinely get into a long-term relationship. and there are no strings attached. Yeah, so that happens, and so that discipline is also important, so that you have the support, but also that kind of clarity that you give to everyone, so that the organization knows how to handle that. It's a dynamic.
It is.
You know,
it really is.
Fairness. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it requires a lot of maturity.
It requires a lot of maturity.
Yeah,
you have to be mature. You have to know how to handle this.
Yeah.
If you have your challenges in your private relationship, you have to be deliberate. Fix them and don't go pouring them everywhere in the workplace.
Fix them. And I think as we wrap up, I would want you to speak to the younger people, because they're the Gen Z population. They're the ones that are now entering the workforce, the millennials, and we constantly hear employers complaining about millennials. And when I was reading up for this show, this same study, I think, talked about how millennials are more open to workplace relationships, and they have no qualms in doing it publicly, even if their employer knows. And you know how millennials are. If something is not serving them, I'd rather leave. Yeah, and so I would want you to speak to millennials on how, entering the workforce, what that means, because they're building their careers. For some of these people, they're already in their late 30s. They have some semblance of a career, but as you're just starting out, do you really want to start with a relationship at your workplace?
You see, that's the whole thing. It takes us back to the issue of what's the goal of the relationship.
Yes.
So if you have the right goal for the relationship, maybe also you need to wait. You're building career, but you've raised something that I want to speak to. How these relationships are destroying career.
Yes.
Right? How these relationships are damaging career.
Yeah.
It's unthinkable. It's terrible. Terrible. One of the ways is some people don't even have an opportunity to grow genuinely. They just get skyrocketed, and they've been a receptionist, now they are
next they are manager somewhere.
Next they are manager.
Yes.
And I know in my work life, I know someone who went through that. And later on, when the movie ended, when the movie ended, it was too late for them to learn certain things, because they were used to being favored by the boss. They had worked in this organization for N years, and they now had to stand on their own after the movie had ended. They were fired, and this was a very senior woman. But she went to one organization, she was fired. She went to another one, she was fired. Senior positions, she went to another one, she was fired, because she was used to being favored because she was a girlfriend to the boss. So that's one danger.
Yep.
And I really want to speak to millennials. Don't do that. You see, if you have to grow, allow yourself to grow, because at some point you'll need to stand alone.
True.
The second thing is that reputational carnage.
Yes. Yes.
Reputation, you can't be trusted. So you if you can't manage your life, you can't control yourself. You've been thrown into this sea of dudes and young ladies, and all of them looking flashy. So what do you need to pull out? You have to be self-controlled. You have to know what you're up to. Otherwise, you're going to plunge into reputational carnage. And that's why some of them can't be promoted. They are such a mess. They are such a mess. They are moving from one relationship to another. I know some places where it's absolute chaos. Like everyone is everyone's girlfriend and boyfriend, and it's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. It's an act of childish behavior. Because if you can't control yourself, you can't regulate emotions, you can't. I mean, all those are skills, mental skills that define. You're not disciplined. And so people's career has been damaged. Damaged. If you've gone into the papers, now we have social media. You know how that damaging.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. No one wants to be there.
It's
no
terrible.
one wants to be there.
And these industries are very small. For example, if you know, like the human resource or the media industry or the banking sector, once word goes around that, oh, this person had an affair, or this person was involved in a relationship, or maybe you have a certain reputation in a particular organization, that you, whenever you come into the workplace, every skirt, you know, every woman, I keep telling my husband, this Kampala is small.
It's so small.
It is
the
so
world
small.
is so small.
Very,
actually.
very small. So if I hear about it and I'm a manager somewhere, am I going to want to employ you?
No. So that's how it damages. That's how it damages career. And you don't want to be associated with low emotional intelligence. Like you cannot regulate emotions. You cannot say no. And it requires that level of skill. Now, before people get into this, you have to weigh. Yeah. Don't just go full blast. Don't just go because you feel. Because all these people, the young ones, and of course the whole issue of personal values. Yes. Yeah. There are people who don't have a standard of what's right and wrong.
What's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that requires personal management. It's really, I mean, all of life is, but this particular one, it requires a lot of personal management. How disciplined are you? How regulated are you? Do you have the ability to say no to certain things? Or every woman who comes and they are rubbing their whatever on you, you just fall for them. For it. Yeah. You have no idea. Yeah. Now, what is happening is that, of course, this is also reflected in the group you have talked about, the millennials, and in their personal relationships. They have very bad marriages. Yeah. Yeah. Very bad marriages. Yeah. And they have this mental, there's a temptation with this whole mental green light. Yes. Yeah, yes. I'll call it a mental green light. Oh, yeah, you're young. Oh, I mean, life is short. Yes. And all this. And then you find that they don't weigh the damage, like we have talked about. Yeah. Reputational carnage, career gets affected. Yeah. Your own reputation as a husband or a young wife, you see, and your children. Yeah. I always ask people, how many people take pride in your children seeing you in the papers for the wrong, or on social media for the wrong reasons? I mean, that's why we hide and we think we can hide, but some of those things can't be hidden. Yeah. So you would rather would develop skill to say no, learn to say no. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Evas. I think so much to learn from this conversation. I like to, we keep saying that, you know, you have one life to live. We're not in a rehearsal. This is the only life you have. There are no spare parts. There are no spare parts, you know, and so you have just the one chance to make the right decision and to do the right thing, especially for the younger ones, because some of us have already done some miles. We've made some mistakes, and so the things that we are speaking on is because we've heard about people's experiences and how that affects them or has affected them. So if you have an ear, I implore you to listen and just have that personal discipline, personal values. What are you about? And just focus on what you need to be doing at a particular time. The relationships will come. Then you'll even get tired of the relationships. I know. Yes. So let us know in the comment section. And the mental health issues that happen. Yes, that happen. It's a cycle. Because you get into this relationship and then it doesn't work or it damages you, and then you probably move to find coping mechanisms. It affects your mental health, your mental state. You can't work. You're no longer productive because now the entire world knows, you know. But maybe the world doesn't even know. Maybe the relationship has ended. No, but you see, Rachel, we are closing, yes. But I'm just remembering something. Let me talk about this. You see, this temptation to think that the person you found in the workplace is better than your partner. That's a scam. It is. It's deceptive. It's very deceptive. Yeah. And I always say, please don't fall for makeup. There's a whole layer underneath. And I'm not against ladies, but let's not try. Let's not fake it. Yeah. Because you see, the partner you've left home, is no worse than the person you found in the work. The only difference is that the person you found in the workplace, you have fewer issues to deal with.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
I mean, what does a smile take, and a hug and a little thing? And so let's not fall for that.
Yeah.
Relationships are a lot of hard work. So for us to think that the person, the guy you found at the workplace is kinder than your husband, that's a lie. That's a lie. Actually, the question once again is, are they kinder to their wives?
Yes.
How would their wives rate them?
Them?
How would this lady's husband rate her before you tell them how unfortunate they are? We have a joke that most of the time we leave our partners and we meet someone in the workplace and say, we are so good and we married wrong people, bad people. So us good people, let's and once people start, and again I've seen this, they start in the workplace and they are declaring their spouses the bad ones, and they say, oh, we were so unfortunate, now we've found ourselves. Us good people found bad people, now here we are. But the thing is, it's deceptive.
It is.
It's deceptive.
Yeah.
That person, you're not spending so much time with them, and relationships are a lot of hard work. So probably if you married them, I've seen some of them, they leave the bad ones, they get together, they marry them, they are fighting. So now the good people are fighting each other. So it's very, very deceptive, honestly. We're not trying to minimize this, but as much as possible, let's avoid. Let's always determine what's the goal of this relationship. And every time you start a relationship, go in the future, project it and see how it's likely to end. Because if you start a relationship that is going to have an end, most likely it will end in tears.
This is true. This is true. Thank you once again for sharing your insights with us on this phenomenon, I'm going to call it that we are experiencing in our workplaces, but that is spilling over to our homes, our marriages, and of course eventually our children, your reputation, the organizations that we work for. It's a thing that's here with us, and you might be thinking, oh, it's not going to go away. True, it may not go away, but you can govern yourself and do better. So let us know in the comments what you thought about our episode, our conversation today. What's going on in your workplace? What are some of the things that you are seeing, and how can we curb them? Would love to hear your insights as well. Join us next week for another exciting conversation right here on Reality Check. Bye-bye.
Bye.